Tid Misere, Carling Palm and Paste Egg Day. I've not gone completely balmy, just repeating an old saying from the north of England. Tid Misere, Carling Palm and Paste Egg Day. Anyone heard that before? Oh, great. Anybody know what it means? No. They are, in fact, the nicknames of the Sundays in Lent to Easter. And the easiest way to crack the code is to look at it from the end. If we do that, we'll discover what today is. Paste Egg Day, well, that's the easiest. The reference to egg gives it away. It's Easter. Palm, that's easy enough too. Next Sunday, Palm Sunday. But Carling, well, that's the name for today, the fifth Sunday in Lent, called Passion Sunday, Carling or Carlin Sunday. I'm very sorry to disappoint some people here. It is nothing to do with a well-known brand of lager. Anybody, I should say any mature person here, you know what I mean, know what Carlings are. And this would have to be someone from the north of England, not from, say, Argentina or Cornwall. No one knows. Well, you all have been given one. Carlings in this context are dried peas. Now, if you look at your dried pea, if you haven't already eaten it, you have to admit that they're not the most interesting vegetable to look at. They're all shriveled up and that peculiar green colour. They rattle in their box. They look shrunken and unappetizing. They're also not that easy to find nowadays, much to the disgust of those who remember the heady days of the pea shooter. What on earth use are they? Well, in that state, not much. But wearing my hat as the cooking canon, I did use them for blind baking. And any men, I'll tell you what it means later. But those carlings can have a very real use. They have potential. If those carlings are left in water and soaked overnight, preferably with a bit of bicarb, they fill out and take on a good round shape, turn green and actually look like peas. The mention of water should lead me to go on to the subject of baptism and its effect. But this would make the sermon far too long, and I would, despite the temptation to talk about that symbolism, I would be in trouble with Ted if I went on too long. He's not listening, I don't think. So what have the north of England's historical culinary habits got to do with me today? Well, you may well ask. Perhaps the answer is in my wondering if, to a greater or lesser extent, some Christians remain carlings and never quite become peas. In today's gospel, Jesus seems to be hinting at much the same thing. Nearly all seeds, when they're first planted, and I just went out yesterday and bought my seeds for this year, they have the same shriveled look as the carling. They appear dead. When they are planted, the first thing they do is to absorb moisture and swell. Then, when the conditions are warm enough, they will germinate to become the new plant. After a short while, nothing will be left of the seed. It will have died. But in its place will be the new plant, full of vigour, which will produce the crop the grower wants. We are, in a very real sense, the seeds whom God has planted. At the beginning, we were all dried up, shriveled individuals. We all need to swell up with the grace and love of God if we are to be useful. We all have the potential of the carling within us to become crops which bear, or plants which become crops for God's glory. But we shall have to surrender to God and allow him to work within us before he can work through us. We have to allow him to work within us before he can work through us. And in that working we shall inevitably be changed. Something of the old person will die, but a wonderful new person can emerge from that dry husk which was the old individual. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be standing here. But I have to admit that putting yourself into God's hands so completely is not without risk. Next week, we shall be brought face to face with just how risky it can be. It was to cost Jesus, the only person who has ever fully done this, it was to cost him his life. And it'll be costly for us too, in what we have to change and accept, in the alterations God's love will make in us as it fills out our lives and changes us from carlings into useful peas, which can feed others with the grace we have received. The only question is, will we allow God to work in and through us? Will you become the person you can be? Are you prepared to let God fill you with grace and love and change you? Well, of course, that's a question we can only answer for ourselves. Are we prepared to walk with Christ to the foot of his cross, not just in the coming days of Holy Week, but for the rest of our lives, and allow God to make us useful people in his church and kingdom? Will we take up the challenge in our prayers, in our Bible reading, our worship together, and above all in our daily lives and in the service of others? Tid misere, carling, palm and paste egg day. Carling Sunday, Passion Sunday, today. Carlings are shrunken, shriveled, stunted, dried up things. And if they stay like that, they're useless. So when you get home, put yours in water and look at it tomorrow to remind yourself that you, like the carling, needs water to grow into the pea. And just so, we need the grace and love of God for us to grow. Filled with that grace, we can follow him not just to the cross, but through it to the joys of Easter. Amen.